My day off unfolded with unexpected revelations and a journey into the past that left me grappling with a mix of emotions. The day started innocently enough, as I had plans to meet my dad, James, who owns and operates his own business. Little did I know that the seemingly routine family interactions would take a turn that would shake the foundation of my understanding of familial bonds. As my brother Jerry casually mentioned, "Mom, if Dad's gone, the company's all mine," my disbelief echoed in the room. Our mom, Florence, responded nonchalantly, adding to the revelation with the pragmatic observation, "Well, obviously, Jerry. Plus, if you do the math, there's supposed to be a sizable inheritance in Plan B with Dad's life insurance. We could live large for a while. It's like a bonus, huh? Got to thank our absent dad." I felt a surge of anger bubbling within me. What was wrong with these people? The callousness with which they discussed potential gains from our father's absence struck me as unforgivable. I couldn't stand idly by and let them have their way. Just as I was about to voice my anger, my phone rang. It was the hospital calling, and on the other end was my dad. The story takes a step back to a few months ago. My name is Christopher, a 33-year-old architect working at a design firm. Having moved out of our family home, I now live alone in a nearby condo. Although a single life can be a bit lonely, I find fulfillment in my job and the independence it brings. My dad, James, and I occasionally meet up for a meal, and today he invited me to join him for some volunteer work. He showed up for our meetup with his usual warm smile, inquiring about how I'd been. "Christopher, how have you been?" he asked. We engaged in small talk, him commenting on my apparent weight loss and the challenges of running a business. The conversation led to him suggesting some volunteer work, and we found ourselves at a small children's care facility on the outskirts of town. Upon arrival, we were greeted by the friendly face of the elderly director, Mr. Chris. Dad and Mr. Chris engaged in warm conversation, revealing a deeper connection. It turns out that my dad grew up in this very facility. After leaving it, he put himself through college and started his architecture firm. Without any relatives to rely on, he made it on his efforts. I've always admired him for his resilience and determination. Given our backgrounds in architecture, my dad and I often volunteer together at the facility. Our skills come in handy for repairing furniture and playground equipment. Today was no different. After finishing our repairs on beds, chairs, and swings, Mr. Chris expressed his gratitude, thanking us for the positive impact we had made. As we were leaving, a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment washed over me. I couldn't help but appreciate the significance of these moments, not just for the children in the care facility, but also for my dad. Visiting Mr. Chris, who had become a father figure to him, was important. The contrast between the selfless act of volunteering and the callous discussions at home left me reflecting on the true meaning of family and the values that guide our actions. As we walked side by side, contemplating where to grab a bite, a sleek black luxury car pulled up next to us. The window rolled down and out popped Mom. Behind the wheel was my brother Jerry. Well, look who it is. Back from the care facility again. Are we, Mom?" Jerry chimed in with a smirk. "It's embarrassing to have a dad without parents. Can we stop this already, Mom?" "Let's go," he continued, chomping on his gum. I felt the urge to retort, to point out that he should be embarrassed as an adult with no stable job and dyed hair. However, I held back. There was no point in engaging with these people. "Jerry and I are going to dinner. You two can grab some fast food and don't forget to fold the laundry, all right?" "Understood, Florence," Dad responded, and without another word, Mom rolled up the car window and they drove off. Dad and I just watched them go, saying nothing. Mom and my brother looked down on Dad, belittling him at every turn. Mom might be beautiful on the outside, but that's about it. The reason they could treat Dad this way was that they were essentially living off his income. They had been trash-talking him for as long as I could remember, painting him as a deadbeat from an orphanage, claiming he lacked ambition or excitement in his life. To them, Dad was nothing more than a wallet that catered to their every demand. What was worse, My brother Jerry soaked it all up, joining in on ridiculing Dad. Our family had 2 kids, but Mom had always lavished her love only on Jerry. She practically ignored me, giving Jerry whatever he wanted whenever he wanted it. Thanks to that, Jerry still clung to Mom like a child, even in his 30s. He still called her Mommy and let her dictate even what he wore and ate. I was floored when I learned that Mom accompanied him to every driving lesson. "Dad, isn't it hard living with those 2?" I finally asked. "I'm used to it. Besides, they're still family. I have to do what I can," Dad replied in a lonely voice before heading back to the house he shared with Mom and Jerry. All I could do was watch him go. A month passed, and I received a call from Mom saying that Dad had collapsed. I rushed to the hospital, fearing the worst. Dad, who looked even more fragile than a month ago, responded to my inquiry. "I got some tests done, and they found cancer. It's pretty advanced." My world crumbled at that moment. My dad had been diagnosed with progressive stomach cancer. According to the doctors, he had about 3 months to live, give or take. I never thought this would happen, especially since he's only in his 60s. The harsh reality of mortality hit me like a ton of bricks, and the realization that time with my dad was running out weighed heavily on my heart. Even my mom was visibly shaken, and I couldn't help but confront her about the dire situation that had unfolded. "Why did you let things get to this point? You and Jerry have been pushing Dad too hard. You know he's been stressed out," I asserted. My mom, taken aback by my accusation, responded with anger, saying, "Henry, how dare you speak to your parents like that? You're nothing like Jerry." I couldn't hold back my frustration and questioned Jerry's whereabouts at a time like this. "What is Jerry doing?" "Off gambling again," I added. While Mom and I were arguing, Dad, who had been quietly listening, spoke up, urging both of us to stop. "I'm fine. Go home for today," he said. Feeling the weight of the situation, I left the hospital room. However, between the worries for Dad's health and the shock of his prognosis, I couldn't sleep that night. Despite the strained relationships in my family, I took on the responsibility of bringing Dad a change of clothes and doing his shopping as he requested. Neither Mom nor my brother lifted a finger to help, but I was determined to make Dad's time as comfortable as possible. During breaks from work, I popped into his hospital room and took care of him for 2 months. Then, one day, when I went back to my parents' house to grab some of Dad's belongings, I'd overheard Mom and my brother talking in the living room. "Mommy, once Dad is gone, the business is all mine, right?" Jerry said, revealing his self-centered perspective. Stunned by my brother's words, I listened more closely. Mom chimed in, calculating the potential inheritance. "Jerry, it's not a given. Besides, if you do the math, there should be around $2 million in inheritance." "Wow, that's awesome. Maybe I should buy another car." Encountering such callousness about Dad's condition infuriated me. "You'll be the company president, so you should drive a nice car," Mom added, showing no empathy for the gravity of the situation. "Thanks to his life insurance, we can live a little lavishly for a while. It's like a bonus. Gotta thank Dad for not being around." I felt like I was about to explode with anger. What kind of people were these, treating Dad's illness as a potential windfall? It was unforgivable. I couldn't let them get their way. Just as I was about to unleash my anger, I received a message from Dad. "Henry, can you come to my hospital room alone?" Managing to contain my emotions, I went to see my dad. He had lost even more weight recently, and his complexion looked bad. "Henry, thank you for always being there," he expressed his gratitude. I sat next to his bed, holding back tears as he began sharing something important. "There's something important I need to talk to you about," Dad said, and I listened quietly, my emotions on edge. As I responded, reminding him that visiting hours were almost over, Dad urged me to focus on taking care of myself. "Thank you, Henry. See you later," he said. In the end, that was the last conversation we had. The weight of the impending loss and the bitterness of family dynamics hung heavy, leaving me with a mix of emotions as I contemplated what lay ahead for my father and the fractured relationships within our family. My dad took a turn for the worse shortly after our last conversation, and he passed away the next day. In the hospital room, I held my emaciated father's hand and cried. My mom and brother also put on a show of tears, but this time, things got even tougher. Technically, Mom was in charge of the funeral, but she didn't lift a finger. Instead, she showed up at the funeral heavily made up, trying to cut corners on the costs. I couldn't understand her attitude, given that Dad didn't have any close relatives. I suggested keeping it simple, but Mom dismissed the idea, saying, "Dad's co-workers and business associates are coming to the funeral. Don't embarrass us with that kind of talk." Today, while Mom was getting Dad's necktie tied, Jerry chimed in, "Just do what Mom says. Don't waste money on a dad like that." Frustrated, I told Jerry to be quiet and asserted that if it was about money, I would handle it. At least, I wanted to give Dad a proper send-off, so reluctantly, I ended up taking charge of the entire funeral. It turned out that Dad was well loved by many people, as lots of folks came to pay their respects, which brought me some solace. About a week had passed since the funeral ended when Mom spoke up, expressing relief that we were now a family of 3. Finally got that person out of the picture. Now the $2 million inheritance is all ours, right? Jerry and Dad's company too. I'm finally going to be the boss, she declared. Annoyed by their immediate focus on the inheritance, I replied that Dad had already arranged all the inheritance matters with the lawyer and provided me with the contact details. Surprised, they urged me to call the lawyer right away, so I dialed the number on the business card that Dad had given me. Not long after, the lawyer, a woman in her mid-30s named Attorney Williams, arrived. "I've been authorized by James to handle matters concerning the inheritance. I'm very sorry for your loss," she said while shaking hands and greeting us. My brother Jerry, in his usual manner, commented, "Wow, I thought lawyers were all old dudes. You're quite the looker. Got a boyfriend?" I cringed at his inappropriate remarks. Mom, on the other hand, joined in, asking Jerry if he liked her. Trying to maintain professionalism, Attorney Williams politely thanked them and requested to discuss the inheritance matters. As we ushered her into the room, I couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and embarrassment due to my family's behavior. Attorney Williams began explaining Dad's arrangements, starting with the company. James had told me before he passed that it would be transferred to an acquaintance's company, she revealed. The revelation left me wondering about the complexities that lay ahead concerning Dad's legacy and the inheritance. As I proceeded with the paperwork, the one who raised his voice was my brother. Confusion and frustration were evident on his face. "What does that mean? I was supposed to become the CEO. I've heard nothing of the sort," he explained. Attorney Williams calmly explained, "For the sake of the employees, the company will be merging with a trusted and skilled company that your father was fond of. The other company has already agreed, so there's nothing that can be done." My brother, angered by this revelation, muttered, "Damn outsider." "Damn it." My mom hurriedly chimed in, attempting to reassure him. "Jerry, calm down. The inheritance is ours, right? It should be around $2 million, shouldn't it?" However, Miss Williams answered matter-of-factly, "No, there's nothing like that. The company was not doing as well as you think, and any remaining assets have been used to prepare for the company's transfer." My brother and mom were taken aback. "What about our money? There should be $2 million coming in." "Mommy, what's going on?" Jerry questioned. Florence, clearly distressed, responded, "Miss Williams, Florence has received a substantial life insurance payout. She has left a will expressing the desire to gift that money." The news stunned my brother and mom. "What are you talking about?" "We've already spent that on a new car," my brother complained. Miss Williams clarified, "James had multiple insurance policies, right? What about those other payouts regarding life insurance?" The bombshell came when she revealed James had canceled all policies before he passed. "All I know is that the money was used up." The room fell into a shocked silence. "What? Where did all the money go before he died? Damn it! Was he planning to leave us without a dime?" My brother erupted in frustration. As Miss Williams left, she remarked, "It's tough, isn't it?" All I could manage was to give her a wry smile in return. Alone, I looked up at the night sky, recalling the last conversation I had with my father while walking. "Henry, would you take over the company if I die? There might not be much in assets, but I should be able to leave you at least the insurance money. There should be enough of that," he had said. I couldn't comprehend the complexity of his intentions at that moment. Dad, the only one in the family who was kind to me, wanted to leave something for me at least. I respected him for building the company from scratch with his hard work. The reality of his decisions and the consequences for our family unfolded, leaving me grappling with a mix of emotions and a sense of responsibility. I want to make it on my own too. I don't need the company or the insurance money. But if there's any inheritance left, I want you to use it as you wish. I'll help in any way I can, Henry. Thank you, my dad had said in our last conversation. As I walked along, I realized I had arrived at the facility. Despite it being night, Mr. Chris was in the yard. When he saw me, he ran over in tears. "Henry, James passed away so suddenly. He told me not to come to the funeral, but Mr. Chris, my dad was grateful for both you and the facility. I just found out too. A little while ago, James made a large donation to the facility, a large one. Now we can buy the things the kids need. We might even be able to renovate. Thank you," Mr. Chris expressed through his tears. While comforting a tearful Mr. Chris, I found myself crying too. Looking up at the starry sky, I whispered in my heart, "Dad, you did it. You did it." A few months later, I had occasional meetings with lawyer Miss Williams to handle the intricate legalities of transferring the company and settling the estate. This was to be my last meeting with her. After expressing my gratitude for her support, Miss Williams offered her condolences once more, comforting me in a considerate manner. As I was seeing her off, I thought about how I might never see her beautiful face again. She was such a kind and gracious person. Just then, as I was waving goodbye, a familiar car pulled up beside Miss Williams and out jumped my brother wielding a metal bat. "Ah, hey, what the heck are you doing?" I yelled and quickly tackled my brother. "Shut up! Let go of me!" His face turned red as I held him down to the ground. He was struggling and shouted, "Were you trying to attack Miss Williams? What's going on? What's going on?" Because of her, I didn't get the company or the money. It's her fault, damn it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's ridiculous. This isn't Miss Williams' fault. I had thought my brother was foolish, but this was beyond anything I'd expected. While shielding a trembling Miss Williams, I called the police. Inside my brother's car, I noticed not just a bat, but the unsettling presence of unresolved anger and frustration that had spiraled out of control. The police swiftly arrested my brother upon discovering not only a bat, but also a rope and a stun gun in his possession, clearly indicating malicious intent. When our mother found out, she fumed. "You'd send Jerry to jail, your own family. How heartless." I replied calmly, "I no longer consider you or his family. My only family was my late dad. I'm cutting ties with both of you." Despite my mother's ranting, I cooperated fully with the police investigation. As details emerged, I learned that my brother had also been repeatedly harassing Miss Williams online, making vulgar comments, slandering her, and even issuing threats. The police were in the process of identifying him, and the evidence against him continued to mount. In the legal proceedings that followed, my brother was sentenced to jail for his attempted attack on Miss Williams. Furthermore, she sued him in civil court for defamation, and he was ordered to pay damages. Faced with the consequences of his actions, I told Miss Williams, "Please take every penny he has if that'll make him reflect on his actions." Despite the challenging circumstances, I apologized to Miss Williams, who gave a faint smile and said, "I'll do just that. Thank you for saving me from a dangerous situation." Several months later, when spring arrived, I found myself at Sakura Garden. However, it wasn't for volunteering this time. It was for a business meeting. The events of the past months had reshaped my life and priorities, and I was now focused on moving forward. As I stepped into the garden, surrounded by cherry blossoms in bloom, I couldn't help but reflect on the turbulent journey that had led me here. The seasons had changed, and so had I. Thanks to the funding from my father's donation, the aging facility was planning a renovation. Mr. Chris approached me for the architectural design. Initially, I declined, citing my inexperience, but Mr. Chris was unyielding. James always proudly said, "Henry will become an exceptional architect. He's already surpassed me. We can do this because of James. I'd like for you to take on this project, Henry," he insisted. With sentiments like that, how could I say no? I wanted to create a wonderful building that brought even a small amount of happiness to the kids and Mr. Chris. I was sure my dad would have been proud of that. As for my brother, well, he hadn't changed even after his sentencing. He became even more irresponsible. Though he avoided jail due to probation, he still begged our mom for money daily, started drinking in the afternoon, and gambled away whatever he borrowed. My mom was being pushed around by my brother every day. The large house we lived in, thanks to my dad, along with the car bought with the insurance money, were sold to pay for Miss Williams' compensation and my brother's bail. Now, it seemed they lived together in an old apartment. A friend told me she had lost her beauty and looked more like an old woman now. She brought this upon herself, but I hoped she would at least reflect on how she treated my dad poorly before he passed away and raised my brother to be such a mess. One last thing, I'm going to marry Miss Williams, the lawyer, soon. She told me in confidence that she felt attracted to me after I saved her from my brother's violent behavior. She's a bit on the serious side, but I love her for her kindness and dependability. From here on, I aim to work hard and be like my dad, building a warm and loving home. The chapters of my life had taken unexpected turns, but I was determined to find happiness and fulfillment in the new beginnings that lay ahead. I hope you guys enjoy this video. To watch more interesting stories, hit that subscribe button. Thank you.